From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. Here we are, Wally. Suddenly you can see July. It's on the horizon, which means you're basically getting to the halfway point of the marathon Major League Baseball season. And the Minnesota Twins, I would say, as we close in on that halfway barometer, that milepost, they're clearly in wild card contention. The race for the division title with Cleveland, I don't think it's a race right now.
Well, it isn't. I mean, as of this point, an 8-game difference when you and I started this broadcast, but they're right in the middle of that wild card chase. If the season were to end today, the Twins would be a wild card team. And, really and truly, all you got to do is get in. You'd love to win the division for a couple of reasons. Certainly, the way Cleveland's been playing, they would have home field advantage. Not only home field advantage, but they'd get a first-round bye. They wouldn't have to play in that best-of-3 series.
You're already vaulted into the next round.
Right, exactly. So it would be them and New York would already be in the next round. So, that works to your advantage. But just get in, as Arizona proved a year ago, man. Just get in. They didn't win the division, not by a long shot, and they just kept working their way through the postseason and got to the World Series. And you never know once you get there.
Yeah, get in and try to be playing your best baseball, hit your crescendo as you get to the playoffs. Texas and Arizona, those were wild card teams.
That's right. Texas was a wild card
and the Rangers won this series. The D-backs destroyed my LA Dodgers in the postseason. They treated them like a speed bump. I never thought I'd see that happen, but you're right. They got hot when they had to. We saw Washington do it a few years ago. There's other examples. St. Louis Cardinals, I think, won 84 games and wound up winning a World Series. So, punch your ticket. But the problem is there's a lot of competition for these playoff spots. Boston's playing better now.
Yep. Yeah, and
Kansas
City. Yeah, they're in the midst of it too, obviously. The Twins just with
Houston's starting to make some moves.
Well, and of course, Houston has the experience. Houston's been to the ALCS how many years in a row now? It's just ridiculous. So the question then becomes, and you and I talked about this on the radio show earlier this week, do they make any moves before the deadline? The Twins, that is. And if they do, who are they going to deal with? And what does the competition look like? With so many teams now in the postseason, right? So there's 5 in the American and 5 in the Nationals. You got 10 teams are going to make the playoffs now. And once you get to that point, the problem then becomes, how do you negotiate with teams when there's 4 other teams that want that same guy?
True. You have 30 teams in MLB, and you're probably going to have 20 teams legitimately battling for 10 spots when you get to late July and the trading deadline. Right?
I guess it's 12 spots now that I think about it.
So that's even more.
Yeah, it's 12 because, it's 6 in the American team because you have the 2 division winners that get buys, and then the remaining 4 teams play it off. So, 6 in each.
So, and then you have those that are on the fringe or in the race. So roughly, 2/3 of MLB is going to think we have a shot. Now, not every organization is going to approach it the same way. Some will just wave the white flag and say, no, we're doing nothing. We may even make a trade. We may take away some of our pieces. Others will be proactive. The Twins historically not super proactive as far as adding pieces. They may add
a fringe guy,
a plan B type of guy.
Exactly.
They won't go out and make the splashy move. And you have to remember sometimes it's a guy in the final year of a contract on a bad team who can come to you for 3-4 months, and then you have to run the risk of losing him in free agency again. The LA Angels last year had Shohei, knowing he was probably going to walk, right? The Angels committed to keeping him. They were in the race, if you remember, for a wild card at the end of July, and I think they felt like we've got to keep this guy just in case. Well, then, of course, the wheels came off. The Angels were horrible in the second half. Shohei's now an LA Dodger, but at least they tried. They didn't get much in return, but they tried.
Yeah, and so now, as I said, you're going to be competing with, 12 teams or 11 other teams, plus the teams that are on the fringe of trying to make the playoffs for a one guy, for a pitcher. Everybody wants a pitcher. So we'll see how that shakes out. I did want, before we get to our guests, I did want to talk a little bit about the Timberwolves because they had made a move this earlier in the week, besides the draft, obviously. But they signed Chris Finch to a 3-year extension. Well-deserved. That's great. And then more good news, the Timberwolves have sold out. So if you want to go to Timberwolves games next year and you're planning on getting lower-level seats, forget about it, as they say out east.
Yeah, it's the trendy Timberwolves now. They're the hot ticket when it comes to teams in this market, and they've earned it. I mean, based on what they did this previous season, they got a lot of people on their bandwagon. And despite what the prospective new owners, A-Rod and Mark Laurie, if they ever get the team, or Glenn, they all want this new arena. But, I like Target Center. I think it's got some history now, and it was a loud building in the playoffs. It's fairly intimate compared to the newer arenas. So, it should be exciting, but you know what? Nothing's written down in stone. There's no guarantees this team will take the next step.
Absolutely not.
And
they had their chance. All right, they didn't have their chance. They had a chance, and we don't know if that chance is going to reappear next year. You just don't know. What if Anthony Edwards gets hurt?
Yeah.
Or Karl Anthony Towns?
Well, what I do know is this. This past season was a missed opportunity at this moment in time. Now, a year from now, if they take the next step and win the NBA Finals, similar to what, say, Florida did in the NHL this season, then okay, it was part of the process. But if they don't, or if they backtrack, it's even more of a missed opportunity.
It's a missed opportunity. Yeah, it could be. No, let's hope for the best, I guess.
All right, well, stick around. We are going to talk some Gopher baseball. Ty McDevitt in the on-deck circle here on 10K Takes, your T-Wolves ticket.
Hot rod, collector cars, street rods, muscle cars, vintage Corvettes, oh my goodness. Whatever you ride, Lakeville loves them too. There are many great car events in the area that you will love Lakeville as much as you love your cars. Join us for Cruise Night in July, featuring a classic car and truck parade throughout our city and historic downtown. Plan your trip at visitlakeville.org.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
And 10,000 takes rolling along. We're going to talk some college baseball now. As we know, John Anderson, 43 years at the helm at the University of Minnesota, stepped aside last month and retired. And in his place, a brand new coach has been hired, and he is Ty McDevitt, and he joins us now. Ty, first of all, congratulations. 9 years actually, coaching on John's staff, and then, of course, before that, you played for him. In a nutshell, what could you take and what did you take from John Anderson, that you're going to be able to use going forward?
It's the best question, because it's really is endless. I think having the opportunity to play for John, having the opportunity to work under John, you learn about a lot. Obviously, a lot about the baseball game, a lot about recruiting, a lot about just the general things that you would typically learn as a baseball player, as a baseball coach. But the one thing that's so unique about John is his ability to connect with everybody, student athletes, donors, fans of the program. And I think what you can boil all of that down to is the word authenticity. He's just one of the more, if not the most authentic human being that I've ever met. So as we look forward to the next chapter in Gopher baseball, I have no concern about trying to do what John did, be who John was, but feel complete freedom in being authentically me. And I think that there's one thing that John's not just instilled in me, but in all of the people that he's coached over the course of his career. It's be you, be authentically you. And that's not going to be me. That's not going to be anybody else, but that's going to be you. So you have to be true to yourself first and foremost. So the program is going to be similar in a lot of ways. We're going to take a hard look at the history and the tradition that our program has and try to carry a lot of those values forward. But we're also going to spice it up a little bit. I'm younger. I've got a lot of energy, and I've hired a staff here that's younger and has got a lot of energy. And so we're going to do things in a different way in some aspects. And I don't think it's a right or a wrong thing. It's just authentically who I am and the way that I want to run my program.
Yeah, the legendary Vin Scully once said, nobody's more qualified to be you than you. So take the baton and go. And John took over the reins in the 1980s. So college baseball was much different then. So you're taking over in 2024 and what'll be the 2025 season. You've got the transfer portal. You've got to convince kids to play in the North. You don't know if you're going to get to play at US Bank Stadium. So it's a different animal, isn't it?
It is a different animal. And I think when you study the generations of college baseball, there's been a challenge in every generation. There really has, in college sports in general. And right now, the transfer portal, the unlimited transfers, now with the revenue sharing model, those are all additional challenges that we're going to have to deal with. But like I tell my guys, you're in college sports, man. Hard is a prerequisite. So pick your version of hard, but you're not going to avoid hard. Hard is out there. You got to run down hard. You can't be afraid of hard. And so you're right. The transfer portal, the new age, everything that's changing, it's hard. It's challenging. But for me right now, I love it.
What about NIL? How much does that figure into how you recruit and who you recruit to try and come to the University of Minnesota to play baseball?
It's paramount right now. The ability to have additional dollars that you can spend to acquire talent, but also to retain your own talent. I've had a few coaches in the league just as I've gotten to know them. And there's a pretty similar sentiment there that if you don't have $100,000 every year in NIL money, you have very little chance of retaining your own team, no matter what the experience was like. Because you have players who have good seasons, they know what their market value is, and for you to be able to retain them, they want something for the effort. And it's turned into more of a business and transactional type space, especially throughout the course of the summertime. Everybody talks. They all know what each other are getting. And so it's important that you have some money, that you got some dollars to spend to be able, like I said, not just acquire talent, but also keep your own team together.
All right. The Big Ten, Ty, is now coast to coast, Pacific to Atlantic. Sure. And you're adding in USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. I mean, some college baseball powerhouses in years past. It is hard, isn't it? That's going to meet even more challenges, right?
Yeah. I think you look at, the pieces of that make it difficult. Number one, the competition, right? You're bringing in good programs, proven programs, historic programs. Number two, the travel, right? You're like you said, you're going coast to coast. You could be going to the East Coast one weekend, the West Coast the next weekend. And then on top of all of that, everybody's getting better. Nobody's getting worse over the course of the offseason with the amount of talent that is out in the transfer portal, the amount of players that want to go from a mid-major level or a Division II level or even a junior college level to the Power 4 or Power 5 level. It increases every single year. So teams are getting better. Travel's difficult, and everybody's adding talent. So if you're not doing the same thing and trying to outpace them at their own game, you're going to get left behind.
As a team that plays in the North, how critical is it that you get US Bank Stadium back? I know John was highly disappointed when they decided that the month of March was going to be the month that they put in the new turf this year at US Bank Stadium. And, it was a horrible loss, not just for the Gopher program, but for all the upper Midwest small college and college programs and high school programs, for that matter, that do use that. But how big a deal is it to make sure that you do get that?
I would say it goes beyond a big deal. It's paramount. It's paramount. We talk about the travel that we have that's inevitable within our league. Having the ability to have a home field that you can play at during the winter when it's snowing out, it's a tremendous asset in recruiting. It's a tremendous asset from a player experience standpoint. And then just being able to play home baseball games, having the last at bat is so important in our game. And anytime that you can play at home and you can get that last at bat, it's paramount. And obviously that's just for my program. And then you look at the next step, like you mentioned, amateur baseball within our state and within the surrounding states. The ability to have access to US Bank Stadium to play games, to get scrimmages in during those cold weather months. It's super impactful if you want to have high quality baseball in this region.
Ty, as you know, I mean, the Minnesota Gopher baseball program has turned out 2 Hall of Fame guys, Dave Winfield and Paul Molitor. Can you tap into Winfield, Molitor, Terry Steinbach, Dan Wilson, some of the guys from yesteryear who also have some money that can maybe help you in a lot of areas?
Yeah, those guys are all very helpful and very connected to our program, and they're aware of what our needs are, and they've done a tremendous job supporting our program throughout the history of our program. So I think one of the biggest challenges is changing the conversation and changing the paradigm when it comes to NIL. You know, a lot of times people hear NIL and they think about your shortstop driving a Lamborghini, or they think about a kid walking around with a bag full of cash. And the reality is, in our sport, we have 11.7 scholarships. And when you divide that up amongst 40 players, you're talking about 30% per kid. That's not a lot of money. So when we're talking about supplementing our kids' aid or supplementing their experience, you know, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, that goes a long ways. We're not talking about kids going buying extravagant cars. We're not talking about them living in penthouse suites. All we're trying to do is get them closer to not having to pay as much for college. And so you're right. Yeah. I mean, I think changing the conversation here and getting people, A, to understand what NIL is and how it affects our sport, and then B, being able to get some of those resources is only going to help our on-field product.
Well, Ty, we appreciate you spending some time with us. I know you got a big hill to climb. You got a lot of work to do between now and the time the first pitch of the regular season is next late February, early March, whenever it is. But we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ty.
He is Ty McDevitt. He is the new head coach of the Gopher baseball program at the University of Minnesota. Eric and I will be back with more on 10,000 Takes after this timeout. Stay with us.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Absolutely. This is green light situation. Lee Hodges. TPC Twin Cities, you never know what you're gonna get.
I'm strolling in historic downtown Lakeville, which is the heart of Panaprog activities. Panaprog is short for Panorama of Progress, and this festival has been going on since 1967. Over 65 events spanning over a week. You'll need to stay more than a night to get your fill of fun. Panaprog offers a wide variety of events and activities for all ages. Panaprog is a celebration of all things local. Plan your trip at visitlakeville.org.
Oh, we're just a couple weeks away from the Midsummer Classic, baseball's all-star game. This year being played in Arlington, Texas. Really the only all-star game that's left in major professional sports, if you ask me. I mean, you know, the NBA is a joke from year to year that gets worse and worse. And the NHL doesn't even play a regular game anymore. And, of course, the NFL abandoned the Pro Bowl because they stopped playing tackle football, so whatever. But that brings me to my question for you, and we did delve into this a little bit last week on the show. Who should the Twins be represented by? I think clearly when I said Carlos Correa, I was just saying that there really isn't anybody else, but don't you have to at least consider Royce Lewis, even though he missed so much time? I mean, his ridiculous numbers in the few at-bats that he has had of hitting the ball over the fence, it's just outlandish. I think you might have to consider him.
A week ago, I would have said no way. Now I'm saying there is a way.
Yeah.
You're right. He has sprinted off the injured list, and all he does is knock balls out of the park and bring energy to the team on the field, in the dugout, in the clubhouse. And, there's always going to be somebody who gets selected that says, I'm not going. Or they're banged up and they need 3-4 days off. And that's maybe where you could justify Royce Lewis, because he's certainly, in my eyes, one of the young up-and-coming stars in Major League Baseball. The key for him is, as we touched on before, stay on the field. Durability. As Bud Grant once said, the most important ability is durability. I got to be able to count on you. So once Royce gets durability, the sky's the limit for this guy. He can do whatever he wants. So, yeah, maybe he will go to Arlington, Texas. We know Carlos Correa is going to go, and he's going to get booed because in Arlington, they don't like people who used to play for Houston.
Well, that's true. Not to mention the fact that,
bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, the cheating garbage can banging scandal that he was involved in. And my other question about this, and I know you agree with me on this, at least to a point, I enjoy sitting down and watching the All-Star game. It's like the only thing going on at that time of the year, right before training camps hit for the NFL. But Fox, please don't ruin it again this year with all those damn microphones. Oh my gosh, microphones on every player out in the outfield, and they're talking to the broadcast. Could you let them play the baseball game, please?
Oh, no, Fox will micromanage the broadcast. That's what Fox does, and they'll have more graphics, and they'll tell you about more breaking balls and cutters and sliders and fastballs up and in than anyone wants to know, even a baseball purist. So that's what they're going to do. Get ready for it.
Yeah, that and the stupid mic'd up players out in the outfield or on the mound. Yuck. Before we get to takes of the day in our final segment, we should talk a little bit about the Minnesota Lynx. They have played extremely well, but if a basketball team wins 13 of its first 16 games and nobody reads about it, hears about it, or watches it, did it really happen? Because does anybody in the NBA care anything about anybody except for Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese?
Right now, it really looks like it's a two-person league.
Magic and Bird.
Yeah, they're the new version of Magic and Bird. And they had the rivalry in college, LSU and Iowa. It's translated into the WNBA, Chicago and Indiana. They're separated by 3 hours of Interstate 55 or whatever it is. It's a built-in rivalry in the Midwest. Yeah, I love what Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark are doing. It's fun. But let's not sleep on a team like the Lynx or the New York Liberty playing in the nation's #1 market. Does anybody know about them? There's some other great players out there, and the Lynx and Liberty played for that cup the other night on Long Island.
Yeah, they did. All right, we still have one more segment to go. Yes, indeed. Takes of the day coming up next, right after this timeout. Stay with us.
Absolutely. This is green light situation. Lee Hodges. TPC Twin Cities, you never know what you're gonna get.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10K takes on television as we wrap up yet another episode. We'll have takes of the day here shortly, but let's talk some soccer now. MLS.
Yeah, your Minnesota United Loons. Now, they struggled of late, but I would say, and I know you were just over there recently to watch a match, that might be the most pure fan experience that exists right now in the Twin Cities of the professional sports level.
I totally agree. It's very natural. It's very organic. What I like about it, first of all, it's a wonderful venue. I mean, most of the fans are covered, but the field is exposed and the pitch looks wonderful with all this rain we've had, just emerald green playing surface. And the fans are into it. And the dark clouds section, which is in one end of the venue, they can't sit down. There's no seats there. And it's constant noise. It's banging a drum. It's waving flags. And when they do score, which they did not when I was there, but they shoot off the smoke bombs and the flares. So
no, they have a blast.
It is a good time. My kids loved it.
Yeah, it's not the music blasting through
it's real.
Right, and the scoreboard telling you when to cheer and telling you when to be loud and make noise and all that. These fans don't need it. I agree with you. I think it's the best fan experience.
All right, your mood. Happy camper, giddy guardian, demanding diva. What is it this week?
Well, as you know, college sports has kind of gone off the rails lately with the transfer portal and NIL, name, image, and likeness. So the players, a la the athletes, are getting paid. They are no longer student athletes. They are now athlete students. Let's face it, at the Division I level, in particular, in basketball, in football, baseball to a certain degree, probably in the southern half of the country, and in hockey here in the Great White North. I would say that we are not that far away from seeing the athletes have to sign contracts. That has got to be next. Because look, do you really want to commit to an athlete and he comes to your university and he's only staying for 1 year? Now, in the transfer portal that currently exists, they can do that. But if they get to sign or they have to sign a contract and the university literally is paying them, because that's what's next. They're getting money from sponsors, the local car dealer or pizza dealer or whatever it is. They're getting money from them as a part of a sponsorship package. But if the university is literally paying them and the university has made them an employee, so now I would say that the university has a right to make them sign a contract that says you got to be here at least X amount of time, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. Don't look now, but that's coming next. So if you're a high school athlete thinking about D1 sports, get ready to sign a contract.
Let's check out the mood meter.
Yes.
Right there, smack dab in the middle, the yellow zone. Demanding diva.
Pretty much.
Well, it could happen. They got to put some guardrails on this thing in some way, shape, or form.
It's crazy.
All right, let's talk some pucks now.
Okay.
Congrats to the Florida Panthers. They win their first ever Stanley Cup. I wanted Edmonton, but I'll give the Panthers credit. They got it done in Game 7 a few nights ago. So now we're down to a group that the Minnesota Wild are part of.
Uh-oh.
The Tortured 10. The only 10 teams in the NHL who don't have a cup. Buffalo's in that group. Vancouver, San Jose, Utah, which used to be the Arizona Coyotes, Ottawa, Nashville, Winnipeg, Columbus, Seattle, and Minnesota. And let's include the North Stars as well. They never won a cup. Their cup came in the Metroplex with the Dallas Stars. So the state of hockey does not have a Stanley Cup. The good news is it may make an appearance here. Kyle Oposo is a member of the Panthers. He's from St. Paul. The cup could be here for a day if he chooses to bring it back. All right, we got to go. Let's FedEx out those thank yous. One to David Weld, Paul Langfellow, Ty McDevitt. For Wally, I'm Eric saying so long. This is 10K Takes Your Sports Ticket.